Let's bring in a couple of Fox News contributors to talk about this. We have Leslie Marshall in Los Angeles, and here in studio, Margaret Hoover. Leslie, what do Democrats hope to get out of a tax increase, even just on that top? Assume that taxes will remain the same for 95% of Americans, but just on that top level, what do Democrats hope to get from that tax increase?
Well, first of all, David, you know it's not a tax increase. This was a 10-year benefit.
No, I don't know that. It is a tax increase. Taxes will go up. That's an increase.
The way it was written and the way it was proposed, and the reason it was proposed is because the economic pluses, the positives on the economic side of this were only for a decade at most. Remember, this was a promise of a robust economy with this. This was a promise of millions and millions of jobs, and we don't see it today.
Leslie, we got limited time. I got to ask you to focus on my questions here. What do the Democrats hope to get from this increase in tax rates on the top level? Money-wise, economically-wise.
By not benefiting the rich and by not screwing the middle class further, we are going to stimulate this economy so that consumers will be able to afford to buy more, and that will bring jobs back.
How do you stimulate the economy by raising tax rates?
Well, how do you benefit the rich to put 100+% markup on products that consumers can't buy or afford to buy or have jobs to buy?
Okay. But the point is, and I got to go, Leslie, because you're not being specific here. There is the best plans, the best case scenario for the tax hike on the top people is $150 billion in revenue over a 3-year period. That's assuming.
Not going to pay for our $1.3 trillion.
But by the way, that's assuming, by the way, that there may not be a tax benefit or a benefit to the economy by lowering taxes. But this, we really think that the government is going to do better with this money than the people who now have it?
Let's talk about what actually brings in revenue. What actually brings in revenue is when you lower taxes, because when you lower taxes, you're generating growth in the economy.
Tax rates.
And more money is generating in the economy. The federal government actually takes in more revenue. This rich talk and the poor talk has got to stop, because the reality is these tax rates, when the Bush tax rates expire, when there's an effective tax increase, Leslie, because over the last 10 years, middle-class Americans have been paying less taxes, and their taxes on January 1st, 2011 are going to go up.
But Leslie,
hold on
a second. Leslie,
unless they make $250,000 or more.
The best case scenario that I have seen of those who advocate a tax rise on the top level income earners is $150 billion over 3 years. Now, President Obama spends that much money in a month. So how is $150 billion over a 3-year period going to stimulate the economy?
Well, first of all, you're looking at it, David, solely. You also have pullback of troops in both Iraq and Afghanistan. You have money from different areas that... Yes, this tax increase alone is a part of all of that. You can't have a plan with just one component financially. You know, if you're going to talk about this stimulating the economy, then why are we where we are now? The whole point of this segment,
Leslie, is whether or not a tax increase is the right thing right now for this economy. And I contend it is not. Why do you contend it is?
Because we are benefiting the rich, and we have seen the rich mishandle their money, because the majority of those that are running these corporations on Wall Street in the private sector screwed it up.
How does $150 billion over 3 years stimulate the economy? How is the government going to use that money to stimulate the economy? Just a direct answer, Leslie.
They're going to put it into other programs that they feel are going to benefit the middle and lower class, which has not been the case for the past decade.
The reality is that the people who are making $250,000 are not rich. The reality is those people, the vast majority of small business owners are people who make $250,000. They're filing as individuals. They're filing as S-corps. They are not rich. They are the job providers in this country. They are providing, between 1994 and 2008, up to 64% of all jobs that were created in the economy. By taxing those people, you are taxing the middle class. You are raising their tax rates from 35%
There's that point as well.
And then they're going to get hit with health care.
But, Leslie, my point is we are being told by folks like Paul Krugman and other liberals and Democrats that the $850 billion that they've spent stimulating the economy is not enough. So how is a measly $150 billion over 3 years going to stimulate the economy? Frankly, I think that money would be better off in the hands of people who could hire other people. But how is $150 billion going to stimulate the economy?
I'm going to ask you a question with a question. How did all of those tax benefits for the past decade end up with people on Wall Street on their hands and knees begging to be bailed out?
I wasn't for the bailout, my darling. I wasn't
either.
You know
we agreed
that.
on that, David.
Right from the beginning, I was against the bailout. I was not in favor of that.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I am with you there. But if you say, look, the private sector was irresponsible in its handling of funds and the government thinks it can do it better, then I say let's give this government, this administration, a shot. We are 18 months into it.
Well, the bottom line here is I just do not think that $150 billion over 3 years in the hands of government bureaucrats is going to stimulate the economy. Margaret, I'll give you the last word.
Besides the fact that we've seen what they've done over the last 18 months, and all they've done is spend money. They haven't done anything that has actually convinced Americans that the spending that they've done has actually stimulated growth.
Bottom line is 9.5% unemployment. Until we can get around that figure, until that figure comes below 9%, I'm very worried.